Ready to light that fire by doing the things that make you come alive? Welcome to Health Raisers, a podcast for wise women. I'm your host, Dr. Nadine. I left a soul-crushing medical career full of bad news and evolved into a joyful health integration coach, helping hundreds of women find their healthy. You're more than your dress size. Stop putting up with toxic relationships, swallowing your true emotions, and sacrificing your mental health. Stop using your body as a battlefield. You're always giving. You deserve to put yourself first, not just for your sake, but for those you love. Wise women, let's make ourselves a priority right now. It's time to raise some health together. Well, hello, wise women. Today, my guest is Richard Kedziora. He is the co-founder of Estenda Solutions. It is a leading company specializing in custom software development, data analysis, and AI for healthcare and medical companies. RJ has had a lot of experience, over 30 years, in the space of developing and deploying successful projects and designs, and won many awards. So I've really been looking forward to having this conversation, RJ, because I want to get into dispelling fear around the conversation of incorporating AI, which is here, in the healthcare space, and how it can be helpful and how we can understand, because I do believe that knowledge is power, so that we know what we're dealing with in terms of how AI is beneficial in the healthcare space. So welcome.
Thank you very much. And yes, there is nothing to be afraid of. And the power and potential of what AI is bringing about is awesome and incredible. I'm proud to say that I'm part of this for many years now and help to contribute it. Estenda is a company I co-founded 20 odd years ago now. And it's crazy. I can talk about decades of working in healthcare. I say I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV, but by developing software with medical professionals, with PhD researchers, we can help make an impact on the health and wellness of other people out there. So I can develop a system that helps millions of people. I'm never going to treat them directly, but cooperating with those professionals that really know the science and the medicine, we can make a difference ourselves.
I would love to hear about kind of this evolution with AI, but can you tell us in right now how AI is being used in healthcare and what I need to know as a patient? What do I ask my doctor? How do I know what my doctor is doing with AI? Yeah, we'll get into a lot of different questions, but let's start with the basics first.
Yeah, the biggest use cases now that would impact or make a difference in your experience as being a patient is in the area, I think, two predominant places. One, imaging. So not directly related to you, but in terms of if you get a mammography or other type of imaging study, doctors, medical professionals are more and more using the AI systems to analyze those images and find things that in many cases, the AI can do better than a human can at analyzing those images. It's making a difference today. So that is a huge use case that's happening today. The other area that now, when we talk about the generative AI, the chat GPTs and those like the systems, is in note-taking, ambient listening. So if you used, we're using, I don't even know what we're using today to record this, but Zoom. Teams, Zoom, they all have note-taking applications. And that's what's happening in the medical field now, more and more, that this ambient listening technology is listening to the encounter, listening to your conversation and taking notes for the physician. So with the advent of EMRs, medical record systems out there, as a patient, when you've gone to an office, you've probably seen your doctor turning away from you and typing on their keyboard feverishly to try and keep up with that conversation. that's not why the doctors, the nurses got into the field of medicine. They want to work with you as an individual. So by implementing this AI ambient listening technology, they can get back to doing what they want to do. They want to interact with you as an individual and hear your story to be able to provide better care. So huge use case today in terms of making healthcare much more efficient. Other areas you're going to see sort of behind the scenes discharge instructions when you get admitted, or even chatbots nowadays, as you know, more typically on the administrative side of things. So as you're trying to schedule an appointment or have questions about billing, you're going to more and more in many fields, and now medicine, you're going to start seeing that applied. So, first version is going to be a chatbot to try and answer your questions.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because I had a billing question today about something, and I had a live chat with a representative, and it was great because it was quick. I didn't have to call. And it put me in the correct queue. It gave me a couple of prompts, and then I was taken to the correct person immediately, who could help solve my issue. But what comes up, I think, for people who might be hesitant about the use of artificial intelligence in their healthcare would be, well, why shouldn't I be scared? You said that in the first case with the imaging, that sometimes the AI will catch something that a physician might miss, a nuance. So that raises a little bit of fear. And then in terms of safety and security, rather, if AI is so-called listening, how do I know that my information is not leaking somewhere else?
We have, addressing that last point first. How do you know your information isn't leaking somewhere? We have the laws in place. Everybody's very familiar with HIPAA nowadays. Mm-hmm. That absolutely 100% applies to the use of these AI technologies. So, the hospital that's using it, your physician that's using these technologies, have those contracts in place. They're beholden by the laws to, implement them such that data is safe and secure. There are lots of AI policies and procedures that governments are creating out there, which is interesting, but the basic laws are there. All the privacy laws we have in place still apply to AI. Yes, it's a new technology, but that data still has to be kept safe and secure as part of that. So it's no more dangerous than any other system out there in terms of the privacy of your information. So I wouldn't worry about that. You have to be aware of it. So, yes, ask your doctor if they're using the ambient listening technology. I find it fascinating. I'm always asking my physician, when I do go, of, what technology and are they using it? Should you be scared? Is it safe? Be aware of what it is. Be well-informed, knowledgeable about that. But the key aspect of this, and I've been thinking about this for a while now, to some extent, I think we have to change how we think about this. So we worry about AI making mistakes. Well, humans make mistakes too. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for second opinions. Doctors, medical professionals are not perfect. And so how do we use the power of the AI and the technology to improve upon that? I'm not the first person to call AI augmented intelligence, but I think that's really the key to enabling a better future in healthcare and society. It's augmented intelligence. How do we use the aspects of this to make a difference?
And now, here's an ad from our sponsor. In the mood for coffee, tea, yummy pastries, or cool swag? My friends at Infusco have got you covered. Infusco Coffee Roasters is a cozy neighborhood coffee joint in Sawyer and St. Joseph, Michigan. Infusco stands for a healthy community. They craft irresistible seasonal drinks, sourcing local artisans' products. The flavors shine from quality ingredients, and their beans are roasted on site. They do not hide behind tons of sugar. Every time I go, I'm greeted by my name with a smile. Bad service is just non-existent. It feels like stepping into a friend's living room. They keep it personal. Old school, eclectic coffee mugs on the wall, fun merch, including stickers designed by artists, t-shirts, and sweatshirts. It's the perfect place to get to know your neighbors and chat with tourists. You will always find people deep in conversation. Special events keep it fresh. Community. Health, the heart of Sawyer. That's in Fusco. I hope to meet you there. Okay, so sometimes I think about scenarios based on sort of being in the sandwich generation right now, where I have parents who are aging and I have adult children. And then, of course, I think about my own health, my husband's health. I think about ways that we can diminish the number of cooks in the kitchen. And what I mean by that is, when information is flowing from many different directions, and it can get very confusing very quickly. A patient who receives bad news in the doctor's office. One of the pieces of advice that I've heard and read about is, and actually talked to someone about, is having a loved one in there with you so that they can hear and they can take notes. Being able to communicate with other family members what's going on. Being able to communicate with, as a patient, being able to keep track of my own health and go, okay, I'm on these medications and this is a diagnosis that I received from my eye doctor, which is related to my overall medical health and, an important piece of information. So keeping it all in one place for myself, this is kind of what I was thinking about while you were talking. How can I, as a patient, feel empowered? Is there software for me to be able to take notes and keep all of my medical information straight, all of a family member's information straight, to be able to communicate it to, say, a sister or a brother? That's what I mean.
Yes. So more and more health systems are putting out their patient portals where that information is going to be available for you to share it, which has nothing to do with AI. Like those are completely independent systems. What I find interesting about AI is the opportunity to meet you where you are in your health literacy journal. If you get that bad diagnosis, like once you hear those words, whatever they may be, you're going to go blank. You're not going to remember anything after that. My wife happens to be an RN, so it's various people in our family have gone to the doctor. Danielle has gone with them to, okay, here's that trained medical professional who can remember this, can answer those questions, knows what questions to ask. That's the potential of AI. So when you do get that diagnosis, okay, let me query, ChatGPT, and there's dozens of them out there. I just use ChatGPT generically as many people to help you understand what you're going through. And then take that information and go and talk to your physician about it. Always go back and talk to a trained medical professional, but to help you ground and understand your situation, to understand what questions to ask. That's where AI becomes really powerful. And if you don't understand what it's telling you, this is what I love. Simply ask it to explain it better, or more simply, explain it to me like I'm a kindergarten kid. And that's the beauty of it, where if I got diagnosed with melanoma. Should I be scared? What does this mean to me? Well, I don't understand that. Can you talk to me like I'm a sixth grader? Okay. And talk to me like a PhD. Depending on where you are in that health literacy journey, the AI can adapt and make those changes. I have a sibling that's studying quantum physics. I have no idea what she's studying, kind of thing. But, I can go to ChatGPT and be like, can you explain this to much more simply so that I can understand it? And it's like, you can go through iterations, make it more simple, make it more simple. Likewise, you can just simply ask it, what questions do I need to ask? And it'll generate you a list to go back to your physician and help you do that. And it's one of those things, like, as someone who works in medical software, I can generate those questions and thoughts, but not in every field, not with every particular condition. And it can do it faster. And it can generate 30, 40 questions, like generate me 10 more questions, generate me 10 more questions, such that you as a patient, as an individual, are going to gain that sense of confidence that you can make a difference in your own health.
Versus Googling, which seems a little bit...
Versus Googling. The difference, the big difference in Googling, which everyone is used to nowadays because it's been around for a while, it's not aggregating that information in a meaningful fashion. If you Google melanoma, you're going to get thousands of results. Which one applies to me? And then you have to do a lot of work around discerning that information. So if you go into ChatGPT and say, in my case, I'm male, Caucasian, 50s, here's my health history, and it can give me much more relevant information to me as an individual. You'll notice in that, so in the fear factor, I didn't have to tell it my name. I didn't have to tell it my social security number or any personal information, but it can provide valuable information.
Let's talk a little bit about the biggest misconceptions that you've heard, witnessed. Debunking some myths, especially over time, as AI is here. It's something that we're actually using and will continue to develop with more time.
Probably the biggest thing is my doctor going to go away? Is all I'm ever going to get to talk to a computer? No, that is not happening. As I look at it historically from a technology perspective, it's things change. We now have computers. People haven't gone away, but they've made a big difference. Railroad cars made a big difference in society. Electricity made a big difference in society. But things shift and change in how we use the technology. Doctors are not going away. Nurses are not going away. They're necessary professionals. I think using the power of AI, we're going to make their lives easier and improve overall, patient health and wellness, and probably even satisfaction to some degree, which I think is amazing. Are computers biased? There's another sort of factor there. What I find fascinating just about, can the AI make a mistake? Are humans biased? Yes. Humans are biased as well. So you want to be aware of that and ask those questions. And we are getting better and better as professionals of eliminating the biases in these AI systems, these algorithms. What's fascinating by this is if you ask your doctor if they're biased, they're likely going to say no. You can ask the ChatGPTs and the systems to identify their biases, and it will. So we have a lot more capabilities there with the AI systems and internal self-reflection to be able to look at those and understand those biases and how they trained over time. We can improve on those.
What are some examples of those biases and how they might be harmful to the patient?
One of the biggest biases, and I was surprised to see this, there's various wearable devices medical wearable devices out there that analyze data through your skin to get at heart rate information. For instance, various rings, watches that can do this. They do not work as well if your skin is darker, because the light doesn't go through as well. And when the original companies developed these systems, who'd they do it with? They did it with people with lighter skin, and it works well. That's how it was trained. They are advancing that very quickly nowadays and improving those systems. But there was bias in how those systems were trained at a very early stage, and now they're being improved. So being aware of those helps make a difference.
And talk to me a little bit more about how AI, as you said, it's not going to replace. The fear is that, I'll have less interaction with a person, a human, in healthcare. How can we still feel, or maybe feel more of a human connection because of AI in healthcare?
Yeah, I think there's two sides of that. One, I think using AI helps the doctors and medical professionals getting back to doing what they want to do. They don't have to take the notes. The computer system can do that for them, such that they can now face you and interact with you and hear your story. So it gives them some of that time back. The other side of it, which I find very interesting, is in study after study, the output and the interactions with the ChatGPT systems are rated as being more empathetic than the human people. That the responses to prompts and to conversations are better when done through the computer. That when they are generated, that users cannot tell the difference between a person or the computer doing this. So, we ask, and you're not the first person to ask this question, and I've had this conversation a lot. It's like, how do I have this more personal human reaction, interaction with my provider? But what's fascinating is in studies, more often the computer is being judged as being more human, more empathetic than the physician, which is crazy to think about. But, that physician has probably seen 30 patients that day, working 12 hours, is tired, through no fault of their own. They're stressed and pushed to the limit kind of thing, where the computer is not. They don't experience stress, and they have access to more information. And so they've seen this in just, email interactions, psychotherapy. There was a recent study I was reading about couple psychotherapy. In the interactions with it, the users couldn't guess reliably which was a computer and which was the human, which is, I think, fascinating. So there's a real opportunity there to improve it. We, here in America, if not the world, we have an obesity crisis. We have a mental health crisis. There are not enough medical professionals to treat all the people that need it. So, how can we use the power of AI to get help to the people that need
some access? Okay, opportunity for access as well. Okay, that's a really good point. Okay, what about over-reliance then? Okay, so you have this new tool, and how do we avoid in laziness or complacency in by healthcare workers? So I remember, this story sticks with me. I think about it sometimes. I remember when cameras on the cars were first becoming more popular, okay? And I was pulling into a space. I was about to teach a class, and I didn't see him at first, but one of my students happened to be watching me park, and I was backing into the space, and I was using the cameras to help me. When I got out of the car, older gentleman, and he said, "Oh gosh, this is terrible. We're not using our eyes, and we're over relying on these cameras now, And so I kind of think about it's this, I'm sure, as you alluded to this earlier in the conversation too, with computers, where when there's a change, we as human beings, generally speaking, we don't necessarily respond well to change. We view it as a threat. Unless you're a very a risk taker, someone who likes that. But for the most part, change does. It's like there's suspicion, with it. So over time, it's been, the radio becoming, this thing becoming, now we have a TV and this is terrible and we're not going to read anymore. And, and then the Kindle comes by and it's like, oh no, we're not going to look at books anymore. And, so it's just kind of, so how do we kind of like catch ourselves here and go, okay, so now our people are going to stop thinking? They're going to look at the computer and say, tell me what's wrong with this patient?
Yeah, so many thoughts are going through that. Like I've had the Kindle conversation. I use the Kindle 100% now. And my father's like, oh, I just love the feel of the book. yeah, it's just, I don't need a light. I can read on the beach much more easily kind of thing. It's lighter. So many things are so much, for me personally, I've switched over to Kindle. I went through the cameras, when they first started hitting cameras as I was teaching my daughters to drive. I was like, don't rely on that camera. I rely on it every day now, myself. And it does. It's like if a car comes, it stops. It physically stops the car. So it's like, okay, yes, I'm still turning my head because that's how I grew up and I was trained and stuff. But yeah, the car is making that decision. The over-reliance is definitely a challenge. It is a new technology. I think it was Microsoft that did just put out a report that they've seen as people become more comfortable with the AI systems, that they're making less critical judgments on the output of what happens in those systems. I would say, there was fear when books first in the Gutenberg press came around and books became more available. There was a fear of reading. And I was like, is this going to diminish our capacity to remember information? No, we can still remember information. Calculators. This is going to destroy math. We still teach math. Has it changed? Yes, 100%. It's changed. I think the challenge of AI is it's happening faster and faster today than we can really accommodate and keep up from a societal perspective, let an individual perspective. I'm in it day to day, and where it was, 2 years ago to where it's today to where it's going to be 2 years from now we're not going to recognize it 2 years from now. So you do have to worry about the over-reliance. And I think there's two aspects of that. One, testing it up front to make sure that it is doing a good, accurate job, putting the systems in place to make sure that happens. So I reference us as humans, we're very fallible. We make mistakes. We know this. There are systems and processes in places to manage this. So how do we take those systems and processes to put them in place for the AI systems to make sure that they don't make the mistakes? And then I think probably the last part of that is that we put systems in place to monitor them. So as they are making these decisions, today and for the foreseeable future, there's always going to be a human in the loop, as part of that equation. It's not going to just be the AI saying, do X, Y, and Z. There will always be a human there, who's going to be accountable for it. But look at self-driving cars. They are quantifiably safer than human drivers. Like, there's no question of that, So, yeah, there might be some fear and hesitancy if you get in a car and there's no driver there, but it is quantifiably safer than having a human in that car driving it. We just have to get there, and there is that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's a very new thing, and so we have to come around to accept it. At a certain point in the future, it is going to be irresponsible to not use the AI systems. And that's going to be an interesting societal change. But, I want my physician using the AI system now. If I, God forbid, get diagnosed with cancer, that's the first thing I'm doing. I'm putting this in the ChatGPT. I'm telling my doctor to use these systems to make sure I get the best possible care. There are more than 1 million articles published every year in healthcare research. It's, often said, medical research takes, 10, 15, 17 years to get into routine clinical practice. No human can consume this amount of information, let alone use it effectively. The computers, the technology can.
I just have to say I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation. I always do, but I'm really, because we're really in sync, because what I've been thinking about as you've been talking is context, and more so than context is how we can control the way we think about, use, approach this new thing. I have Grammarly on my laptop, and for a little while I was hesitant. I was like, oh boy, I'm going to get dumb now because Grammarly is just going to tell me how to write sentences, and I'm not going to think. I'm just going to let it do it for myself. But what I've noticed is as I've calm myself and come to, use it on a regular basis when I'm typing an email or writing questions for these podcasts or, whatever, writing a letter, whatever I'm doing, I don't have to take the suggestions, or I can take some of them and leave some of them. Or I can also think, when I said context before, what I meant was sometimes I'll write something and Grammarly will go, oh, this is, you need to make the sentence look like this. And I get all these red marks and everything. And I go, but I want to sound very casual. I want to sound really down to earth. I don't want to sound like a professor in this, this communication. It's not formal. So no, I'm not going to use that. And there are times where I'll construct a sentence and it's awkward. And you don't know what you don't know, So it's like, oh, I'm learning a little bit of better grammar at the same time. So I think it is an opportunity to learn. And based on what you said, there is an overwhelming amount of information. And with the onset of technology, medicine gets more and more complicated. There's more uncertainty in how does one see so many patients in a day and have time to sleep and eat and also to study and keep up, where AI could be a very powerful tool and grab a lot of data from many resources that are relevant to this particular condition and synthesize it in a concise way where the doctor can go, okay, these are the recent statistics, and these are the new modalities, these are the new treatments, and this is why this one is working better for this particular condition, or
That's absolutely it, because more and more research and science is drilling down into the individual, looking at your genetics. You see it in various drugs that are advertised on TV. Like, if you have this specific condition and this gene expression, then this applies to you. And I was like, how many people is that like this really drills down to? And I guess the economics for the drug company to do that advertising. But that's really what it is. It's like, okay, does the doctor have the time or the knowledge, the awareness to be able to go and do that research? And I'm fortunate to live in a major metropolitan area, the Philadelphia area, which has a massive healthcare system. But if you live in rural United States, you don't have necessarily access to the same level medical professionals. But using those AIs and the systems can help level the playing field.
Okay. What about, we've talked about in the clinical setting, what about at home? How is AI being used for patient care at home, and wearables, and are they becoming better, and how are they used, and how are they used to convey information from the patient to the doctor?
Yeah, this is where, my 20 years of experience of being at Estenda really speaks to me. We've done a lot of, and continue today to do a lot of work in medical device, synthesizing the information and looking at it. And 20 years ago, it was so limited amount of information. And I was like, how do we make decisions with just one or two data points? Where nowadays it's a flood of data and information kind of thing. I shouldn't say you can't, but it is very hard as a human to synthesize that amount of information that these wearable devices now generate. It is through the power of data analytics and AI that we've been able to use to make a difference with these wearables. So think of a person with blood glucose, with diabetes, where, and people still do, they use a finger stick methodology. It hurts to prick your finger, and if you're lucky, you do that once or twice a day and get very limited data. Well, if you can use the newer continuous glucose monitors, some of them are generating data a minute. So a lot more information is now available to better understand when you eat something, how does it impact your body to then be able to make a change? And the AI systems built into these technologies at various different ways and mechanisms can surface that information to you. There are new glucose monitors available to people without diabetes. So I was able to wear one of these, and I know the science, but to see it is extremely powerful. So I know if I eat a meal and then sit down, it's going to have one impact on what happens within my body and my blood glucose, and it's going to go up. If I eat that same meal, and I conducted this experiment of me as an individual, I ate the same meal the next night and then went for a walk, 10-minute walk, nothing strenuous, nothing crazy, 10-minute walk around the block, had a distinct difference in how my blood glucose and how my body responded to that meal. Much better off taking that 10-minute walk. I know the science. I've developed systems that implement that science, but to see it in those numbers in a nice graph, to have the AI in the solution be like, hey, look at the difference that, made, is a powerful moment, teaching method to understand what's going on. And again, to understand what's happening, more and more of these systems in the wearables and on your smartphone are putting the AI chatbots in there so that you can talk to it and interact with it. Hey, I didn't sleep well last night. If you're, wearing one of the rings or the watches kind of thing, or whatever sleep tracking mechanism you may use, there's a lot of them in the market these days. I didn't sleep well last night. Okay. Why is that? How can I improve that? It's still early stages. Some of that isn't as personalized as I would like. So I am looking forward to where that goes in the next couple of years. But here's another example. You mentioned being in the sandwich generation, and I'm right there with you. My parents are getting older. Fortunately, they're still independently living. My kids are, in their 20s kind of thing. They're off doing their own thing. But I think about my parents, and they're on market today are passive monitoring systems. Various different companies offer these. So you as an individual in the home, as you need assistance or maybe care, you don't need a camera. I don't need a camera to watch my parents kind of thing. But you can put a sensor in the bed to know, okay, my mother got up this morning. My mother went into the bathroom, used the facilities, turned the coffee machine on, got her coffee cup, opened the refrigerator, sat down in a chair, turned the TV on. And I know that is their normal pattern of activity. So I'll need to be aware. But then next week, she didn't get up at the normal time. She slept in till 9:30. Very unusual. She didn't start the coffee. Okay. Ring, ring. What's going on? That's powered by AI to be able to analyze that data and know that there's a difference in what's happening, to be able to signal me to say, okay, hey, call your mother, check in and see what's going on.
So there's an opportunity. So there's an opportunity then for, I hate saying independence because we're not. We are interdependent, but I think there's an opportunity here for some more agency to make a house, to make living in your home, if you want to stay there, more feasible as we age. And we do naturally lose some of our abilities. We just do. It seems like there are opportunities there to make a safer life at home longer possible.
Absolutely. And I had the unfortunate situation last summer. My father-in-law passed away, fell out of bed at night.
Sorry.
And nobody knew. And unfortunately, it was, he passed away from that, unfortunately. If he had a fall technology, then that could have alerted us to be like, hey, your father-in-law fell out of bed kind of thing. He's not moving. That's powered by AI to be able to look at that data and understand what's happening. So yeah, it's fascinating what it's capable. And yeah, it's like as you do get older and you still do have agency, and it's like, where do you want to be? Do you want to be at home where if you've lived 30 years, a very comfortable environment? Absolutely.
And yeah, and even make the environment. I listened to a podcast episode on another show and I heard something, it was so interesting and so, I was so in awe of this person identifying the reality that she is growing older. And she said that as she has accepted that she has taken specific steps to design her home to make it ADA compliable. So that she's thinking, if I can't use my hands, I can tap the faucet with, my arm, my elbow, putting in, a bidet or, just railings that don't necessarily look like a hospital, but they look like a towel bar. So, but it's still a railing there in the bathroom to help you get up safely or walk into the shower safely. So just having that wherewithal and that vision to use this technology to your advantage to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish sounds very exciting to me.
Yeah. And I don't remember the name of the company. I'll have to get it for you so you can put it in the show notes. But I know there's a company out there that has a mobile app that uses the camera and you can walk through your house so it can see your environment. It will suggest products for you to help you with making your home more user-friendly from that perspective. So it's like, okay, here's a step down. Okay, I need a handrail here. Here's the bathtub. I need a handrail here. Me as an individual in the sandwich generation, going over to my parents' house and be like, okay, what are the things that I can do? Because, you might not be aware of all of the things that are available.
Sure.
To make that a safer environment. And through the power of the AI, that camera is looking at the environment and saying, there is a risk. Mm-hmm. Here's something you can do to mitigate that risk. Powerful opportunity.
I love that. So this sounds like the future. Are there any other exciting endeavors on the horizon in terms of AI in medicine?
How much time do you have? It's just this is, Compass is my life these days because it's as a profession kind of thing. But yeah, there are just limitless opportunities. I look forward to, again, the wearables, but even as we've been talking a lot about that physician encounter, think about the note taking that it can do chart summaries and understand what your experience is, has access to that wearable data. So it has a deep understanding of what's happening to you, particularly outside the four walls of the hospital or the doctor's office. So much happens outside.
Absolutely.
When you're sitting there, your physician can't consume all of that information, but the AI can, and they have access to that knowledge. So then how they put all of this information together to make your experience better. I think, specific questions the AI can generate go to the physician, and then the physician, as the human in the middle, can decide, okay, this is an appropriate question to ask kind of thing. But huge potential for what's possible kind of thing. A lot of work in drug discovery. Google literally, I just saw announce what they were calling co-scientist to help generate new ideas, new molecules and drug targets to work on rare diseases, that don't get a lot of attention, to accelerate research. It's incredibly powerful, So I do, as sort of an example in my world, I do user interviews. How do you do your job so I can help automate it, help make you be more efficient? I generate those, I've been doing this for years, generating questions to ask. Well, I can also go into the ChatGPT and, hey, here's my situation, generate me 10 questions, generate me 10 more, generate me 10 more.
Yeah.
And then I can generate 100 questions and I'll pick the top 10 kind of thing. So much faster. The same thing is happening in medicine, in research, and just the opportunities are limitless.
So it is still coming from you. You as a human, you're using this as a tool to help synthesize information more efficiently.
Yes, it's a creativity, efficiency. Yes, the big use cases today for you or I as individuals, the listeners to your podcast kind of thing. If you have a challenge, go into these systems and ask it. And the key is I've interacted with people, a lot of times they're not impressed by what it may have generated. Well, simply ask it, how do I work with you better? Like, ask it to help you. It's like, okay, here's my question. How can I get the best result from you, ChatGPT? And it will tell you. You can tell it, ask me questions to better understand what I want to do. And it will do that. It's fascinating.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate everything that I've learned. I feel more encouraged, more knowledgeable, therefore more powerful. And more in charge of myself and those around me. So my last question that I ask every guest is, what is your personal definition of what it means to be healthy?
I love this question. I, for the longest time, said I have a goal of living to 100 with a good quality of life. And someone said, why just 100? So yes, now my goal is to live to 100 plus with a good quality of life. And my definition of living that healthy life is to be able to do triathlons. I'm passionate. 20 plus years now, I've been doing triathlons. And when I go out to an event and see that person that is, 70, 80 years old, I'm like, I want to be that person because they're still out there doing what they love. And that's what I want to be able to do. My definition of healthy is doing what I love, which does happen to be triathlons. Well,
thank you again for being here, RJ. I look forward to adding that app in the show notes that you mentioned that can help you assess your living space and make some powerful suggestions. As well as putting in information as where everyone can find you and learn more.
Absolutely. Yeah, great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Wise women, move from last place to first place in your life. Stop using your body as a battlefield. Let's raise health together with a customized health plan just for you. Contact me at npkhealthintegration.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.